It's a good point.
Oha and Stanley.
It's a good point.
Okay.
Why do you put me in this rock and a hard place?
I do these things because I love you, Will.
But no, I think, yeah, the message was directed at Chan, and I do have to set up a whole breeding colony.
Oh yeah, right. You have your rats to play with. I forgot.
You have to repopulate the ship.
Okay, cool. Fortune, are you going on this excursion?
I am not, but I would like to maybe possibly do some work on this rifle that's supposed to be damaged. Or not damaged, but just put together incorrectly.
Improperly constructed?
Yes.
Totally. Okay, cool. So you'll be taking care of that. And then Oha does not show up for this, obviously. So it's gonna be Chan, Gogo, and Oscar riding into the night.
I think that when you show up, Oscar, or more like when she shows up, because I imagine you two are actually on time,
Yeah.
and then she kind of shows up a few moments later to her own message. Anyway, I think she pretends and feigns like shock that you're there. She's like, "Oh, Oscar, what are you doing here?"
He says,
So-
hoping to see some of these races that were so important to your formative years, Gogo.
Yeah, and I think Chan's like, Gogo, I know that the subject line of your message was addressed to me, but I did notice in the message it was addressed.
Yeah. Yeah. So you ready to go? Let's head out.
Happy accident, Chan. That's all.
I think he pulls out his compad and writes down "happy accident."
You know, these things happen.
He just nods emphatically.
Yes, things happen. Yes, okay.
Yeah, so the three of you head off into the night to go watch your races. Do you go to like an old haunt, Go-Go, or is this just like you just want to find a decent bar or decent like gambling den to watch a race from?
Oh no, I'm going to the actual racetrack.
Okay.
The night races are similar to akin to drag racing, so they're like short ones that are at night, and they're like more dangerous because obviously high speeds in short amount of space and whatnot.
Yeah, there's less it's less technical in some aspects as far as like maneuvering, but it is generally more like reactionary skill based in that regard.
More finesse.
Yeah,
and I feel like the other races, it's more technical. You have to think about your fuel and all that kind of stuff, where these you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's just go as fast as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. Yeah.
Cool. So the group of you goes and you go to a shuttle and you drop a few credits, doesn't matter how much, on a shuttle that you load up and you take it's grav, basically like a grav bus that you're on with like a bunch of other vaguely Russian vodka smelling like humans. There are probably I feel like Thune is a fairly diverse culture. So I actually think that you probably see in the buses, it's like a triple decker, couple hundred people bus, more like a small train perhaps. And there are probably a few Tan and Sriak on board as well as you are traveling to the location. And so there's a couple different ways to watch a race. The night races are done from like enclosed stands a lot at certain points like throughout the racetrack area. And some of it is done with like an overhead airship that you would watch, like the overhead view. That's kind of like the higher class way to watch races. But the overhead view races are mostly for the day ship races because those are the kind of higher class society kind of races.
Do they ban precogs from betting on races, or
I don't think they
Sad.
have. I don't think they have a reliable way to test. But
yeah, that's not.
yeah, but with it, because these systems are because Thune itself is so ingrained in the system of gambling in these races, they can identify patterns almost instantaneously.
I'm sure that something so complicated as a race is outside the grasp of.
Unless you're, like level
prediction
7 precog or something like
Yeah.
that, right? Like,
Where if you are, you're probably not betting on races.
yeah, exactly. Like this is probably
you're
not.
doing way bigger things.
Yeah, this is probably not where you're going to be making your money as a high level
Probably
precog.
doesn't mean definitely though.
True, very true. But yeah, no, they would be able to identify patterns.
I'm sure
not...
there are some blacklisted individuals that fell on hard times, and
yeah, absolutely. There probably is. It's probably public information as well. Like, it's probably in like all the gambling dens, just like this ID number, do not allow, etc., etc. So you guys, I assume you're going to watch it from the stands now. Gogo, the current race is on a track you actually know. It's on, write this down. Track 567-4 Bravo. And track 567-4B is not a particularly hard track. It's more of a beginner or warm up for some of the later, more difficult tracks. It is relatively a straight stretch, but it has some elevation obstacles. Some quick up and downs, like up and then under archways and stuff like that. Because the landscape is somewhat barren, but somewhat also mountainous. There's these like flattened plateaus that have these canyons kind of in the middle of them. And then there's these like stone archways that kind of breach over those. There's these stone like spires that kind of come up out of the ground a little bit. And usually they're used as racecourse markers. For example, you'll start at one archway and it's race to the next archway, and then you have to hit so many boundaries. Like you have to make sure that you pass this spire on your left and this spire on your right, and that's kind of the deal, right?
Robo Jordan.
Am I Robo? Hello?
No, you're good.
Robo Matt.
Oh, it's me then. It's me then.
Yeah, it's
Fuck.
Yes.
I mean, you sound fine. You don't sound like a robot.
Yeah, you sound fine right now. Just your internet.
Oh god.
Oh, maybe you can't hear us.
No, I can hear you, but it feels like I'm having a stroke.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's not good.
You're
Maybe.
like really warbly, and it'll sort itself out. Continue.
Okay.
Basically like slalom, but
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I mean, have you ever seen in today's world like the Red Bull plane racing?
Yeah.
Very, very similar to that kind of thing.
They have those for drones. Did you know
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I've seen it
Oh my
before.
God,
Yeah.
that's so sick.
That is almost identical to what I picture here, except with larger
Except with bigger, yeah, exactly.
larger vehicles.
Exactly.
That is almost exactly what I'm picturing. Some of the day races take place like through the canyons and might be a couple of hours long. But the night races are generally like you said yourself, a little bit shorter in detail. Anyway, but track 567 4B is certainly where newer racers cut their teeth a little bit. Veteran racers will come race on this track if they want to squash some newbies and make them cry over losing their money. But generally they stay away from it. But it's usually like the first couple of races in the night are these, and then they'll progress to the more difficult ones later on.
Yeah, I feel like though we're watching it from the stands, Gogo totally still knows some people in the pit, and she's gonna try to get in there to actually look at what the hardware is that's gonna be raced later today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So as the group of you arrives, you arrive just as one race is ending. And you can see the contestants, they're flying back like slowly. And they enter back into like the bubble dome area that's the safe environment. And they enter the decontamination chamber, and you see like both drivers get out, and they go up and they shake each other's hands, and then they post the times up on the board. They're respectable for this track. In your prime, you certainly could have just crushed them. But you can see as well, like the two pictures they show of the guys.
What are you trying to say, Jordan?
The guys shaking hands. Don't worry, I'll get there, Matt. Of the
It's not her prime anymore.
maybe she needs to prove it. I'm trying to help
So,
you here,
Gogo,
Matt.
you do have a secondary character ready to go because you're gonna die in a race, right?
I mean, I have two, so I mean,
Okay,
let's
so yeah,
go.
we're fine. Let's do it.
Matt, I'm trying to help you out here, okay?
Yeah, I know. Jordan just knows that I updated. He clearly saw my goals list. That's all.
Oh God. Oh, God.
Actually, I didn't, but that's hilarious.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I don't. I don't open your
You should
character
check
sheets.
You should check it.
I don't open your character sheets, but I will
God
check it.
damn it, Matt.
The two gentlemen who just got out of their pods are younger. Maybe in their late teens, early 20s. Not to say that Gogo's much older than that, but certainly a more accomplished racer, because you were racing since you were, 12, whereas these guys probably just started not that long ago. And so I think that, everybody's cheering and clapping, and the stands are just starting to fill up. It's clear that most people aren't coming out till about this time. And the next race up, I think you recognize one of the names. It's probably, let me get a name here. It's Vardic, Vardic is the surname, and you recognize the surname, but you don't recognize the first name, which is Vladimir. And Vladimir Vardic comes up, and you can see that this individual is the spitting image of someone you used to know on the planet. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Would you like the Vardics to be a rival or a friend?
I mean, when Gogo raced, everyone was a rival, but I feel as though.
Well, there's rival and enemy, right? Like.
Oh yeah. Let's say friend. Like
friend.
Only friend.
Okay. Yeah. So you see Vladimir Vardic go up, and he is the spitting image of what you assume to be his father, and just much younger, right? Like more your age. And he gets up and he gets into his pod, which is a sleek kind of dark, like gunmetal gray color. It's got very smooth lines. You can tell just from the look that the engines are not quite as large and powerful that one would need for the night races to really be productive. But the sleek lines allow it to. It's also a very small silhouette, so it's actually more suited kind of for a day race running. And then there's a woman who's his competitor, and she's got like this like very long ponytail, like almost down to like the small of her back, blonde hair, and you can see it's kind of it's like a little bit frazzled from like the helmet that she's been wearing, and she's in a flight suit, obviously. And they introduce her as Grutilda Uman is her name.
And she's an unknown.
Grutilda Uman. Yeah, you don't recognize the name, but what you do recognize is the style of pod. The style of pod is representative of probably a mid to high level pod racing faction here, called they're probably just called the Rapport. That's the Rapport. With two P's, obviously. Their Rapport, they do a lot of like commercial racing. It's how they make their money, is their racers are paid and provide some of their winnings.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, they're the sellouts.
They're the sponsor-ridden sellouts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the difference of like someone with natural talent going and making their own money versus someone with a little bit of talent that's able to make a living off of it. You know, that kind of thing. And so these two, you see, they kind of square off and they get into their pods, and you could tell that her pod is almost specifically designed for night racing. The engines are far larger. It has a bulkier, blockier design that isn't as maneuverable, but can be more aggressive in the turns and stuff. You're not going to immediately die when you hit anything, like in some of the lighter pods. And so they get in and they kick off. And Gogo, can you roll me a luck save?
God, I'm so good at these.
Perfect. So tell me the conversation that you have. Again, the race is probably only about a minute long total. What's the conversation like? Like, how do you explain anything to Chan and Oscar?
Oh yeah, no. The second Gogo walked in, she's talking like a mile a minute. Like,
yeah, so let's see a little bit of that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think Gogo walks in. She goes, "Okay, so here's how this works. You see how these races are set up? They're only a minute, maybe less, depending on how good they are. It's always 2 versus 2. It's never a team fight. Now look at these 2 pods. See how they're totally different?" And then she like starts listing every single minute detail that she assumes anyway, because she doesn't actually know, because she hasn't seen these pods up close, that of how they're different and what that's going to do to the race. And she just like pauses for the briefest moment. She's like, so you with me? You following along?
Oscar nods.
Chan is nodding and trying to record as fast as his fingers can on the compad.
Great, perfect.
Yeah,
And then,
Oscar is just soaking this up because it's a very it's one of the few windows he's gotten into Gogo's inner psyche.
Yeah,
like
this is probably
he's
the
just
happiest you've seen her, and like most enthusiastic she's ever been about literally anything ever. Baby music, but you know. Yeah, and so I think when she sees the 2 names come up, and she's like, "God damn, I cannot believe that family is still racing. See that name? Vardic? I swear, that must be his son? God damn, how old am I?" And she's like listing off, you know, like what she knows about his dad and how they used to race, they used to be best friends, until, you know, that one time when I beat him so bad. God, was he pissed. We haven't really talked since then. Huh. And she kind of like thinks about that for a moment. She's like, well, let's see how well his son does. And then she like sits down, because I'm sure at this point she can hear the countdown clock.
Yeah, you can probably hear the bump.
Yeah, and the second she hears that, she shuts up completely and just focuses in on what's going on.
Yeah, you just dial in on it. And they take off. It's maximum speed in under a second when they emerge from the starting gate. There's very little
distance
downtime.
Are we away from these things?
So the thing is, from inside the stands are all sealed. There are some stands along the different parts of the course. And then there's like the main stand where they both start and end at, or start at usually, and then they roll back to. But you know, it's TL4, right? So the camera system can make you feel like you're right in the action the whole time. And the courses are not long enough where you wouldn't be able to see the lights at the very least down on like the other end of the track. I don't know, maybe a couple miles.
Okay, so we have like a crazy bird's eye view, and we're watching what we understand to be vehicles at a distance.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But then like, so I think that in this setting, it's so important to these people. Every seat in the stands probably has its own monitor that you can so manually cycle through channels, or like, you know, bring up. So when they're not within your vision, you could
there's like monitors all over the place. Everywhere. You can see the details, but the track itself, not really a track, but the race route itself is like kind of down around the periphery. That's basically what we're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
For
cool.
for like
I'm just
physical
trying to,
viewing.
trying
Yes.
to imagine like what physically trying to see them would be like and what the environment is.
Yeah, blurs of light.
Okay.
Basically.
So the countdown starts and it takes off, and viewing Gogo, you're probably tracking everything manually because you know the course. And
yeah, I got it like split screen going on, and I've got pulled up all these different weird things.
Yeah. Over the course of the race, the Vardic, Vladimir Vardic, he pulls out in front. He's got a much lighter, much more nimble pod, and so the first part of 567-4B is a little bit more technical. You can't take off right out of the gate, or you'll miss the first turn and the first hill that you have to hit. And so Uman has to take it a little bit slower in her larger, clunkier pod. But then they hit a flat part, and you can see the difference in technology here, or the difference in build. Perhaps the couple of microseconds that Vardic took in the technical part of the course, Uman blows by it and then some, and is probably maybe 3 or 4 lengths ahead of Vardic. And then at the end, there's another technical part where you have to bank but also rise at the same time, because you have to get over like a large rock and hill, but you also have to make a sharp left-hand turn at the same time. And we see as they take that turn with Uman in front, Vardic closes the gap a little bit. And as Uman comes out of her turn to make the next right-hand turn, Vardic has to veer upwards, and then has to basically like barrel roll onto his back to get back behind, but she kind of shoves him off of it because her pod is much larger and takes up more of the track. And that continues basically for the rest of the minute-long race. Is every time he goes to pass, his opportunities are kind of foiled by the bulkiness of her pod. So while he may have the more nimble and quicker ship around the turns, he's not able to use it. And I think at the end, we see the times pop up. And while he was able to kind of keep with her, he just was unable technically to get by her. And he loses the race. Overall, Gogo... actually, you should make a roll on this. Gogo, how about you roll me a culture Thune? Can you do that? Roll me a culture Thune with intelligence. Okay. The racing was pretty good on both parts. It is clear that Uman knew she was outclassed on the turns, and deliberately was kind of boxing Vardic out. And you could tell that even though Vardic was adapting in the ways he should adapt, it was kind of textbook, and Uman clearly is the more experienced and was able to continue to box him out the whole race. So she outflew him and had the better equipment, but there's promise there from him. Uman obviously is, she's probably done 50 races more than he has, because this is her job. She comes out here and she just races a bunch of races for cash every night, and then that's her paycheck. Whereas Vardic is more likely doing it for glory and fame. Cool.
Yeah.
It says, how many of these do you sit and watch in a row? That was awfully fast.
So Gogo doesn't even know that you notice that you're talking, because she's already automatically watching the replays on her thing, like
He's just
going back,
in the...
like going back to a certain time and going like, yeah, see right there, and then she like goes back forward and then like lets it rewind a little bit. And then I think if you kept talking, she's like, oh, sorry, what?
So, nothing. Replays seem necessary, huh?
Oh yeah, they're crucial. I mean, well, for obvious reasons of entertainment, but
spectator side.
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, look right here, and I like pull up my data pad. He's like, see, this is where he lost it. This is the moment right here. He bullied him right out of the turn. God, and she's like, lost again.
He kind of he's just absorbing all of this. He sits and watches some of the replays as you point things out.
Yeah, and Gogo's totally like, well, if you're interested, I mean, she'll play teacher in this scenario to whomever will listen to her, because kind of her thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that so how many races do you think there's? Like 10 tonight, maybe?
At a minimum. There's probably at least 5 of these like early, like kind of low level races, and there's always a main event. There's a main event every night, right? Like there's always one race where it might be like up to 5 5 of the competitors that have qualified for one of the longer night races, like the more dangerous kind of hectic night races. But yeah, 10 seems like a decent number.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things after Gogo, kind of the initial hype of being here kind of wears off a little bit. And I think that while these other kind of lower level races are going on, I think she wants to go see if she can catch, because I know that all the racers go back through the bubble of where the people sit to kind of go back around, because they kind of have to make it back to the beginning. So she's going to want to try to catch her sort of companion friend, Vardic, as he goes back through.
Yeah, totally. So I think that are you bringing Oscar and Chan with you? Well, Chan's following you, obviously.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wouldn't tell them not to. Say, hey, you see that racer I told you I knew? Let's go see if we can chat with him.
We may not have much to talk about, but yes, I will come along with you.
We'll miss a few races. Is that a problem for you?
No, the replays, I suspect we could catch up on in a few minutes' time. So
yeah. Okay, great. Let's go.
Yeah, just like drags you back. Cool. So as you guys are headed down there, I think we get a scene over back in the ship. So Fortune, you're working on this weapon now. I assume you want to use your newfound armorer skill to try and address what's going on here.
Oh, I sure do.
Okay.
Do we down at the tracks shortly hear a large explosion coming from?
Yeah, all the screens,
dockyard,
all the screens simultaneously turn to the news, and they're like, docking bay 54 exploded.
News.
Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
Casualties unknown. Massive explosion at docking bay.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So, did I set you up with? Oh, that's Oscar. That's not Fortune's character.
You get out of there.
Let's see. Did I set you up with maybe I didn't. Okay, so you want to use your armor skill to figure out what's kind of going on with this particular item. So a couple things here. One, you'll need to figure out first kind of what's wrong with it, like how if it's even like feasible to make it work. 2, then you'll need to roll to make it work, and then 3, probably need to if you wanted to replicate it, that would be another roll.
Yeah.
So I don't think I gave you a clock yet.
No, you did not.
But I think your clock is going to be 0 out of 2 with an optional 3.
Okay.
So you haven't gotten to roll yet, but you totally would have had an opportunity to do it. So I'll allow one roll right now. Go ahead and roll me your profession check. Using, and in this case, since you are trying to figure out what's going on with it, using your intelligence.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so I think that what happens here is you basically taught yourself from these manuals, right? Like these online manuals. And
Yeah.
all of these manuals are very by the book. This is how things are supposed to be done. And so that's where all of your knowledge base is. But unfortunately, when Bruno put this thing together, he used some crazy messed up BS to put it together. And so you like look at it and you're like, but that's not supposed to be. I don't understand what.
It's like trying to fix a bad haircut.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Like
yeah.
it's not pretty in there, I think is what.
Yeah, totally. It's a good way to put it for sure. So unfortunately you don't get that success. But I think that as you're doing this, you hear like the cargo bay door open because the workshops, or not the workshop, the armory is kind of in the cargo bay area, like along the walls.
Yeah, not too far from it.
You hear the cargo bay door open, and coming down the ladder you see Oha, and she kind of descends and she kind of looks around and she sees you and she moves over towards you and she says, "Oh, Fortune, right? We haven't had much time to talk since I've been on board."
Sorry.
I said, and I think she says, "Beyond the welcoming that I received."
Yeah. What's up?
"Oh, I'm just doing rounds. It's kind of nice being a little bit more quiet on the ship. Thought that music playing all the time."
Rude.
"You're not there."
I know, but still rude.
I'm like, yeah, I always like the ship when no one else is on it.
Yeah, I think you don't.
I
Explosion
feel
from
this
explosion from the med lab, and everybody's like, "Ah, no! The rats were actually explosive rats. Oh no!" So yeah, I think she nods and she's like, "Yeah, I could definitely see why you feel like that. If you don't mind me asking, what are you doing here?"
That's a good question. I think I'm trying not to kill myself. That would be the best answer so far.
And I think she kind of like hesitates a little bit. She was like leaning in closer and then kind of like backs away a little bit. Like she's like, "Oh, well, these types of armaments are not particularly my style. I prefer, well, a up close and personal weapon."
Yeah. So you and Oscar probably get along pretty well in that sense of stuff then.
Nothing could be further from the truth. Oscar is, well, he seems a good enough man, but he has a long way to go before I think we could see eye to eye on things.
Okay.
But that's neither here nor there. For one who, like myself, doesn't like to get involved too much, I find myself drawn to becoming embroiled in the goings-ons upon the ship, and I can't help but notice that out of all of the ones here, you seem the most classically trained, at least in, well, combat weaponry.
I tend to like things that I can fix, or at least I understand how it works. And this laser show light stuff, that I don't understand any of that. So I stick with the tried and true.
Yeah, certainly. That makes sense. If I had to carry a ranged weapon, I think that one of the projectile manner would be certainly better. But I can leave you to work. I was just perhaps looking for some conversation and just getting to know crew members. I know that my arrival has probably caused some turmoil. It wasn't the prettiest of things. But if we are to work together, you understand, I think that at least I should get to know people, right? Can you hear me? Hello? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Chat, stand by. I think we have a Discord problem. Hold, please. Your call is important to us. Okay. Well, here's what we're going to do, chat. It appears that Discord has pooped itself. We're going to go ahead and take our break here. We'll be back when Discord comes back up. Everybody stay tuned. I'm going to play some tunes. Don't go anywhere. Promise. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take our break.